But civil rights leaders charge he's forgotten where he came from and how he made his way up. As the Senate prepares to debate whether Clarence Thomas should sit on the Supreme Court, we'll look at how that nomination has bitterly divided the black community.
This is ABC News Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from New York, Jeff Greenfield.
Maybe it shouldn't matter. After all, what does Clarence Thomas's color or the fact that he came from poverty tell us about his ability to interpret the First Amendment or the Commerce Clause or the Federal Communications Act? That is, after all, the work of the Supreme Court. And yet, on the eve of the Senate committee hearings on the Thomas nomination, you get the feeling, to paraphrase Martin Luther King, that Thomas will be judged both by the color of his skin and by the content of his character. Indeed, for weeks, a heated argument has been underway inside the black community about the link between Judge Thomas's race and background and the way he might think and act as the 106th Justice of the Supreme Court. Would he bring the memory of poverty, discrimination, oppression to that court? Is his background the kind of tonic a Supreme Court needs? Or is his conservatism a sign that he's forgotten where he came from, that he'll be a fig leaf for a court hostile to cries for justice? There is no consensus here. Most black organizations oppose his nomination. The polls say most black Americans support it. And as Nightline's Dave Marish reports, the Thomas nomination has revealed radically different ideas about just what a black representative ought to be representing.
I think that possibly there are some leaders of organizations in the black community who have followed the lead of others and have been attacking from the very beginning our programs. But I have been gratified with members of the black community that have told me they believe in the program.
Ronald Reagan believed there were solidly Republican votes hidden in America's black community. And George Bush has continued the campaign to attract to the GOP conservative blacks who support free market economics, self-help, not government programs, and a tough approach to law and order.
Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers.
Among the targets of this controversial ad were blacks who are as worried about crime as whites and more likely to be its victim. But anger over the Willie Horton issue backfired on Bush campaign manager Lee Atwater when student demonstrators forced him to withdraw from Howard University's Board of Trustees. Horton, the students said, symbolized white racial preoccupation with a black criminal whose victims were white. Now, President Bush's nomination of Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court enrages black critics who see it as a successful political manipulation.
He has used Clarence Thomas in the most negative of ways. He's used Clarence Thomas to pit black people against black people. He's used Clarence Thomas to pit some black people against white people. He's used Clarence Thomas as I can't remember any other nominee of the Supreme Court being used.
When Lyndon Johnson nominated Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court, he emphasized Marshall's many accomplishments. But Alexander says Bush's nomination has been presented differently.
What this president did was immediately tell you how many dollars his mother didn't have, and that somehow had to do with his qualification for the court.
If credit accrues to him for coming up through a tough life as a minority in this country, so much the better, so much the better.
This is a model that resonates across the black community.
Judge Thomas, he was born black. He's going to live his life as a black person. He's going to die black. He's had the experience that blacks have had.
The Reverend Johnny Scott is the president of the East St. Louis, Illinois branch of the NAACP. His executive board voted to endorse the Thomas nomination, and so did the board of Royce Ester's Compton, California branch. But the NAACP National Board voted to oppose Thomas and ordered all of the branches to follow suit. Compton refused, and despite much pressure from NAACP National Chairman Benjamin Hooks and others, Compton's local leader says every one of his board is sticking with that pro-Thomas declaration.
And if I went to the 32 people who voted, 32-0 to support Judge Thomas, if I went to them today, what would the vote be?
I think it'd be 32-0.
It's 3,000 miles from Compton to NAACP national headquarters in Baltimore. But here they say the distance is even greater between national official rhetoric and local reality. Take this housing development, Sunny Cove, for example. It was supposed to be an affirmative action employer.
We need affirmative action. We need goals and timetables. We need aggressive enforcement. And we do not need another person on the Supreme Court who comes along saying all of those things are not really necessary.
At Sunny Cove, one man's judgment is that affirmative action wasn't unnecessary, just ineffective. Stanley Prince, a construction worker who couldn't get a job building Sunny Cove, did buy a home there. He says affirmative action produced only limited opportunities for one or two black workers.
It's a token situation that they have to make it seem as though they're being right, but in reality, they're being wrong.
I just think that this existing civil rights leadership is out of touch, and this demonstrates it.
Political analyst Eddie Williams isn't so fast to write off today's black leadership, but he does see challenging times for them ahead.
What we may be seeing is the beginning of a kind of watershed period in which it will be necessary for the movement and its leaders to make some changes, some modifications in its direction. I don't consider that to be a crisis. I think the crisis comes if the leadership does not recognize these signs and does not make the proper course correction.
But today, the leading vote-getter among America's black politicians says the impact of the Thomas nomination on black electoral politics will be minimal.
The argument is over an appointment and about what 100 all-white senators, mostly millionaires, will decide about the president's appointment. This is not grassroots bottom-up. This is appointment and anointment top-down.
There's nothing new about divisions within America's black community, several seasoned observers told us. But what is new is the openness of today's debate. And that in itself may be evidence of how successful the Bush administration has been in reshaping the political playing field on which Clarence Thomas's future will be determined. I'm Dave Marish for Nightline in Washington.
And when we come back, we'll be joined by civil rights leader Julian Bond, who opposes the Thomas nomination, and by author and Professor Shelby Steele, who says he and Thomas see eye to eye on the key issue of affirmative action.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Sears Brand Central.
It's true. More people choose more of each of these brands at Sears Brand Central than any other superstore. They thank you. We thank you. Now during our birthday bash, pop in for the biggest 46-inch TV buy around. Save $150 and get 2 free speakers with theater-like surround sound, plus 2 remote controls. Right now, only at Sears Brand Central.
You're about to see the product of a relentless commitment to quality. It started in the 80s and continues to build. Last April, Ford Motor Company unveiled the all-new 92 Mercury Grand Marquis and Ford Crown Victoria. And the innovation continues. In fact, 92 is our biggest new model announcement in years. September 26th at your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer. Amazing things happen when you make quality job one.
Our tailors are absolutely vital to what we're trying to do. That's why we put a tailor shop into every one of our stores. Master tailors want to look at a garment on a customer to get the full sense of how the garment should fit.
The easy